So I guess the next question, and I'm going to start with Mr. Hunneman again, is what regular responsibilities do the grant recipients have to the DOE? How does the DOE manage that process? And then, each one of you, what are your regular responsibilities to the DOE? I know from talking to Seth, he's constantly flying around and has to do certain things, but how is this whole process working for you? And what are you expected to deliver? And how is this audited? And how are they keeping you honest? I guess is the question. I'll start with Mr. Hunneman.
From the DOE perspective, there's a cadre of what we call technical project officers. Each of them have several of the grants that they're responsible for. They are responsible for becoming intimately familiar with what the grantee is doing, how they're performing on it. These are the individuals who have to sign off on the invoices. And if you haven't thought about it, consider yourself in a position to say, we just got a $10 million invoice from this company, and I have to certify it's okay for the government to pay it. It puts you in a little bit different perspective. But these folks are expected to become very knowledgeable of what's going on in the grantee, the progress, the risk, those kinds of things, and doing regular interactions, and eventually doing on-site kinds of discussions with the grantees to keep aware of what's going on. As an example, Pat Hoffman, my boss, the Assistant Secretary for Electricity Delivery and Energy Reliability, is getting a series of regular smart grid grant reviews, and each of the program office folks, the technical program officers, are coming in and telling Pat about the current set of the implementation of it. Things that are included are things like what are the current risks, or the risk to the project, high, medium, low, what's being done to mitigate the higher ones and a medium level risk. One of the things that I've been very curious and interested to follow is the degree of consumer acceptance in the cases where the consumers are involved with meters and things like that. There's been some very interesting feedback coming out of the grantees and what they are doing to achieve and maintain consumer acceptance. The point is there's a lot of involvement in addition to the bureaucratic paperwork that has to go with all of this.
Thank you very much.
Well, as a recipient, we're part of one of the R&D funded efforts, so it's a little different than some of the other funding that's out there. But I think clearly in negotiating the contract with them, they were very particular with us about making sure that we're able to produce all of our results. Documentation is a big part of what we're trying to do. In our case, we're partnered with Purdue University and with Oak Ridge National Lab, so we have a lot of integration and testing that's going on. So a lot of the stuff that Oak Ridge is producing, for example, is essentially going to become part of a lot of our documentation. Obviously, they work closely with DOE, so there's a lot of scrutiny that's going to be placed on our project, we anticipate. Another part of the structure of our contract is, it's a cost sharing like some of the other ones, and there's very specific rules about making sure that the contributions that we make, meet the DOE's criteria, so that we anticipate that's going to be looked over quite closely. And then finally, I think a big part of our effort is being able to present at conferences. I know in speaking with our particular program manager, that's a big line item for us to be able to speak and talk about what's going on and what we're finding. And I think within key management, that's very important because there's going to be a lot of dialogue that has to go on in order to come up with good solutions. And participation in the groups as well. And even as I've been here today, getting invited to participate in more and more some of those working groups is important. We've already been doing that with NIST, and we look forward to doing that with some of the other ones.
Okay, I will echo what's been said, but let me add too, just because it's an R&D grant, there is one difference, and I think this is very important when you're looking at it. We're going to fail in some of the things that we're doing. I mean, if it's research and development, it means it's technology. And to me, if you're doing a very good job on the R&D side, you're going to try things that are going to fail. If you do everything from an R&D perspective and it passes, you're not doing real R&D. The focus on what we're doing really is applied R&D. We're identifying basic research issues, but we're not really doing the basic R&D. But we need to, we need to try things, see what works, see what doesn't work, and give all of the participants an opportunity to say, well, let's see what happens here. And then I think another part of it, as we talked about, is transitioning whatever tools and techniques, products that we come up with, making sure that those are available for individuals to use. As an R&D program, it's always nice to say, yeah, I did this great R&D project, but if nobody uses it, to me, it is not very valuable. And I think particularly with the smart grid, as we know, there are enough serious issues that need to be addressed that we had better make sure that we're able to transition all the tools that we come up with. And with the other groups, the EPRI team, it's a coordination of labs, vendors, and so on, and the idea is to get all of these groups together and come up with the research agenda, test it, and then figure out how to transition it in deployment.
This is really the first government contract that I've been intimately involved with, and so it's been an eye-opener in many respects.
Sorry.
It's actually been an overall pleasant experience, I have to say, and not just because our DOE folks are in the room, but the level of expertise on the DOE side of the house is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at our technical program manager and the team that's doing things like accounting and invoice review, they're experts in their field in their own right. And they're coming in and lending guidance and support for the project. What that means in a practical sense is that we really do have to partner with them. They're becoming involved, integrated into our project. And so to that extent, we have weekly meetings. We've got monthly, quarterly, and annual reports. We've got deliverables that are mapped out, and we're held to those deliverables. We've got audits, accounting system and financial audits. We've got invoice review. Every time we submit an invoice, every line is scrutinized and questions are asked, as they should be. And of course, we have the cost-sharing component as well, which is really interesting. So I would say overall, it's a different experience, but it's been really good, and I think it's setting us up for success because we're having the eyes on it, friendly eyes on it early in the process versus towards the end when you've got everything done, people come in and say, well, why'd you do this or why'd you spend this? We've got it up front, and so any mistakes or inconsistencies are identified early on, and we have a chance to correct.
I think it's been an extraordinarily positive experience, and we have a technical project manager who's superb, and he pays attention to what's going on. So I'm going to say some negative things, but I want them to be understood because I think we can do better. I want to say these in the context of everyone understanding that I think this is amazing, and without a doubt, the DOE money is making the co-ops more secure. It is having a huge impact. Great program. I would like to see more opportunities for all of us doing grant research to exchange information with each other early, okay? I would like people to read the stuff that we've written and tell me where it's wrong. I would like to see other people and get more ideas from them. So, William, I'm challenging you to facilitate or have us talking to each other more, because there's a lot of smart people and everybody has the same motivation here. More conversation with each other. The other thing is more focus on immediacy. Our grant goes through, we're going to terminate the work in August of 2014 because we have to collect data on all the deployed equipment and do sort of econometric and engineering studies. I really want to see intermediate results getting out to people sooner. I want more pressure from DOE. Being a publication type organization, CRN, we publish an awful lot. We're going to be distributing things early, but we're not going to see things from other projects early enough to incorporate them into the later stages of ours. So I want to see everything pushed harder, and I want to see a lot more collaboration among all of us. So that's in the context of a program that I happen to think is one of the best things I've ever seen done by the DOE.
Thank you very much. I guess I wanted to mention one thing, because sort of like riding on the coattails of your comment. I don't know if there's going to be more DOE funding or more funding for the smart grid security or cybersecurity program and such. I'm assuming there will be, because it's a big thing, it's a big deal, and the federal government definitely understands that. What I would like to see is, and maybe it's not the DOE, but at some federal level, some funding for state-level public utility commissions to get up to speed about smart grid security? Because that is one thing that is very much lacking, and yet they are given the responsibility to, in essence, adjudicate on distribution without having the resources to in any way truly understand security. So maybe you can take that back to Washington, Mr. Hunneman.
First off, the comment about additional funding, if you're expecting the federal government to provide any more funding along the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act funds and the R&D funds that CIPRIS and EPRI and NESCOR and NESCO have gotten, it ain't going to happen, folks. The congressional budgets that we're seeing are flat at best. There's some discussion around the Washington Beltway area about possibly terminating some of the current grants early
Wow.
in the interest of trying to save money somewhere. The circles that I hear about and I'm aware of are saying that doesn't make any sense because they are being successful, that it's just talk, but it is talk. But the real point is there's no big increase in budgets coming down, at least for our organization, for 2012 and beyond. There is some talk about rolling our budgets back, just gradually freezing them back to the 2008 level. It's a depressing conversation in our world. Don't anticipate any big increases. I took a lot of notes when Craig was talking. I will definitely give them to Pat when I get back in the office and start talking to Hank and everybody else and see if we can engage these. These are good feedback. The point about the state utility commissions having a critical need has been noted. We'll make it again. Pat is aware of it. Pat is supportive of it if we can find a way to do it. She's heard that message. We've all heard that message. We've got to do something about it, whatever it takes to do it. We're creating a major choke point for real innovative progress by not giving them the resources they need, my personal opinion.
Thank you. Andy, you had a question? I'll open it up for questions before we break for lunch.
Thanks. I'd like to pivot away from Bill's gloomy comments about budget and go back quickly to Craig, who I overheard saying two things caught my ear. One was, paraphrasing, without a doubt, X is money made, Y more secure.
Yes,
Sounds like that's demonstrable.
totally.
Okay, that's the one thing. The other thing is, from Deming, et cetera, the programs the co-ops are going to write up to show how they intend to have continuous improvement.
Yes.
I would assume that inside of continuous improvement, there's the temporal axis. There's a time when they are less improved. There's a time when they're an arc towards some higher state of improvement, and then they have reached an improving point, which is not the end, as you said. It is
Right.
a path on the way. But in order to be able to demonstrate that, you must, I assume, be looking at some things and noting them, and then seeing how they're coming together to form some greater good that's called a more secure situation. Is this the case?
I love this question.
I didn't say metrics or measurement.
No, I didn't. The other thing that, Deming is famous for saying is you make what you measure. And that is the huge danger of compliance as the metric. And everybody here has said, we're talking about security, and compliance is not security. It is just a measure, and I would argue a limited one, of what real security is. I believe that the definition of what we're reaching for has to be revised. I sense you have something else to say, so I'll shut up in a second.
No.
Oh, you
No,
don't?
I don't.
I believe that part of continuous improvement is deciding how much better you can be. What would make us better, and is it worth it, and deciding on direction. So our concept is certainly not network-centric. I love the last presentation. We can't think of security as just network. We have to think of it comprehensively. I was at a place where I was taken in to see the wonderful new SCADA system, and we talked about security. And I said, well, you've already compromised. And I said, why? It's because you didn't do a background check on me. And they said, well, you don't know how to use the SCADA system. I said, yeah, but I know how to hit it with that fire extinguisher. It's a little hyperbolic, yes. But the truth is that security, there are many ways to compromise a system. And I love the fact that I'm hearing about distribution automation technology here. I've been to so many conferences where everybody says, we're gonna take down 3 states for 4 days, and then they start talking about meters, and it's like, no, guys, you know, I mean, that's interesting, but they're different things. Let's talk about DA. My view is that continuous improvement has to be invested in smart people, well-educated and motivated. That they sit down and they understand their vulnerabilities and they think about how they can improve it. They engage with other smart people and learn about other threats and say, what should we be doing in that area? That the planning itself is the critical part of continuous improvement. And we're planning a 24-month review in every one of these things of your next 2-year plan for cybersecurity. How are you going to improve it? With midpoints all along the way. And it includes metrics. You know, did we do what we said we were going to do? Did we do this test? Did we do that? It goes way beyond. You're continually redefining a higher goal.
Okay, and I just wanted to say thanks for making the documents available. I'll check them out as soon as I
Please,
can, and
we will
hopefully
give them
everybody
to
else will
everybody.
too.
I'll work with my colleague here, okay?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And
Can I add something? One of my soapboxes, Craig just touched on. Folks, we've got to convince all of our senior managers, your C-level folks in Congress, folks at the state utility commissions, those of you who are here, great, thank you for being here. The fact that security is a journey. Cybersecurity in the smart grid is a continuous improvement process, as Craig said. It is not a point solution. If your vendor's great, keep doing your great things, but stop selling this. If you just install my product, life will be better. It will be better, yes. But once we get that installed, we're going to recognize the additional threats that it now allows us to take a look at. It is a continuous process. That's the key. It's a journey. There is no end to this. Thank you.
I always like to use compare it to the human body. I say, you know, you're born generally healthy, you get ill, you do something to fix it, but you're not guaranteed to be well for the rest of your life. You have to continuously maintain it, and eventually you get ill again, and eventually maybe you die, or yes, you definitely do die, right? So, but the bottom line is, you know, you have to understand that, you know, that's the way a system is, you know, when you're looking at security. It's a continuous improvement process, and there's going to be bumps along the way, and you just continue to build on it and improve on it.
can I add one threat? Our conclusion is EPRI has estimated that the amount of data that's going to be used in the smart grid is 10 to the 4th greater than the amount of data we have now. IBM's estimates are closer to 10 to the 5th. That means that there is a fundamental change in the architecture of all IT operations, and that change will likely be in the direction of a bus-centered design. And I love buses. They scale. They have the agility. But they also provide just the tastiest nugget in the whole world to attack.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to change, and during the change, we have to plan for that change in order to accommodate that. So.
Yeah, can I just add one more? We've talked about the last couple of days of malicious activities and so on, but there are also people on the inside that aren't necessarily malicious. You have administrators that make mistakes. I've been doing cybersecurity a long time in applications. Last thing I ever do when I get a new application is read the instructions. I only read it when I get in trouble, you know, and I mean, you have those people that are not malicious,
Yeah.
and the comment about kind of protect people against themselves, you need to consider that people aren't always malicious.
That's true. Neil Greenfield, AEP.
As one of the recipients of the Smart Grid demonstration grants, we would be really interested in the collaboration efforts.
Yeah.
There was a grant that was awarded to the University of Virginia in Blacksburg, I believe, to create a smart grid
Virginia Tech
information.
and Blacksburg.
Yeah,
UVA
the knowledge
Charlottesville.
base.
Wasn't that the intent? Well, yeah. Wasn't that the intent of this smart grid information clearinghouse portal to facilitate the collaboration efforts?
That is one of the goals of that. But as we all know, there are many, many ways to do this, and I don't know, maybe it's a generational thing, but I personally prefer face-to-face kinds of things, supported by portals and those kinds of things. But you're right, it is one of the goals, one of the primary goals for that effort.
Good point.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Even though it's not.
Well, on that note, I want to thank the panelists.